My name is Jarred Maxwell. I'm one of the co-founders and the partners of Austin Food Shed Investors. Well, we were born out of slow money, basically. So I've been in charge of the slow money group here in town for a couple of years now. I've been involved with it for almost 6. What we did at Slow Money was try to get local sustainable food companies ready to receive the funding that they need. The folks would get up there and they would get kind of ready to go, but there would be no funding in place. They got really frustrated. That happened quite a few times. So myself and my business partner decided to go invest in a couple of them. We're a hybrid between an angel network and an incubator. So when we first started off, we were just going to be an angel network. We were just going to sit back, look at deals, and invest in them. What we found was about 10% of the deals that came through our door were actually investable, that were ready. The other 90% needed incubation. I would disagree that the number one reason that companies fail is because of lack of capital. The reason that they have a lack of capital is because they have a lack of preparedness when asking for that capital. What do you want to do with your company? What do you want to be when you grow up? So are you starting a CPG company that you want to grow and sell to Nestle? Would you rather have a company that you grow and you end up doing for the rest of your life? You may not necessarily make the jam every day, but you own a jam making company. If that's the route that you want to go, then how you set your funding up from day one is drastically different. What we recommend in the way that we look at financing is we do what's called Bootstrap Plus. So Jeremy mentioned bootstrapping. That's borrow money from friends, family, buy the cheapest piece of equipment you can. Identify a milestone. Do you want to get to $1 million in sales? Do you want to get enough revenue that you can hire a couple of key employees and afford it? What is that milestone that you want to get to? And then let's figure out how much money you need to get there, and let's go raise that much. If I'm not break even, then my first milestone needs to be, I need to figure out how to get to break even. Because once you get to break even, the whole world opens up to you because you no longer have to borrow money. You know, if you borrow $50,000 early on and you pay it back, and it gets you to your milestone, where now you've got a whole lot more traction and you look a lot better financially, and you need to raise $150,000. Well, you've already borrowed 50, and you're paying on it, you're performing, and you're growing, and you're meeting your plan. It makes it a whole lot easier to go get that 150. You go do that 150, it's going to make it way easier to go get 750 in the third round, rather than right out of the blocks, I need $750,000. It's probably 100 times easier for me to help you raise $100,000 than $1 million. You need to create an operational plan. I want to know, to get to that milestone goal that you've set, to get to break even or get to $1 million in sales or to get to whatever, what do you have to do? And break it down line by line. I need to do this. I need to increase my market exposure. I need to increase my margins. I need to find a distributor. I need to kick my distributor out and move it back in-house because I gave away too much margin points to get it. Whatever that is, build that operational plan and be very specific. Exactly what do I need to do to pull off what I'm trying to raise this money for? What all that does is that all folds into your overall ask. So then you can go to an investor and say, look, here's where I'm at, here's where I want to be, here's how I'm going to get there, and this is what I need to get there. So what we do is what we call small batch capital. And we came up with that because every single deal that we look at, we sit down and we go through this process and identify what is the best fit for financing for that business. It's based on a lot of things. What's your exit strategy? Do you have an exit strategy? What's your growth trajectory look like? What does your cash flow projections look like? Are you break even? When can you get to break even? Some companies that want to grow hyper fast and exit and sell to somebody, they never have a plan to break even. They raise money, they burn the money. They go raise more money and they burn the money. And they raise more money and they burn more money. The whole idea is you're increasing your valuation to eventually get acquired. That is one route to go. We had one company come to us. They were doing sales of around $1,000 to $1,200 a month. They came to us, said they needed $600,000. So we sat down with them, we looked at their cash flows, we looked at the market opportunities, we looked at their projections, we helped them refine it. What we realized was they didn't need quite that much. They needed about half that much, which is still a lot of money. But what we also realized was what they were doing was a perfect candidate for a USDA grant. So we put them in touch with a grant writer. Grant writer wrote for them. They got a $250,000 grant from the USDA, free money. In the end, all they needed from us was about $70,000 to prime the pump on those USDA funds. So they ended up getting almost $350K out of the whole deal, They got a very low interest $70,000 from us, and they're off and running. And then we expect to have them come back to us here in a while when they're at a whole nother level, and we can look at a whole nother investment phase with them because they're going to do great. Every single deal should be looked at and should build a capital stack specific to that company. So you've got a company right now that say is worth $250,000. Say you're doing $100,000 to $120,000 a year in revenue. We'll give you a 2x multiple, possibly a 2.5x. These are just round numbers. So that's $250,000. You need $100,000 to go buy a piece of machinery so that you can triple your output and grow your company. So if you go the debt route, say you get relatively, say you don't get the cheapest debt in the world, you get $10,000. So you get $10,000 debt you have to pay back over 5 years. How much is that debt going to cost you? It's going to cost you about $20,000 over that 5 years, a little less. So say then that you go and you have, again, a $250,000 company and you need to raise $100,000. So you give away about 40% of your equity. Because on a true valuation or whatever, you give away 40% of your equity to get that $100,000. I'm sure you all have seen on Shark Tank. This is how they work those kinds of deals. So then let's say you hit this out of the park and your company grows. And over the next 5 to 10 years, your company grows to doing $1 million to $1.5 million in revenues. Now based on the 2 to 2.5 multiplier, what's your company worth? It's about $2.5 to $3 million, right? Well, you gave away 40% of that $2.5 to $3 million at the start. So that money was really worth almost $2 million to you. So that's just something to think about early on whenever you're thinking, well, I can't afford debt. I can't afford it because it's too expensive to pay it back. I'll just give away part of my company because that's free. Well, it's free now, but it's not free later. That's kind of my take on investing and how to invest in the food companies, and from y'all's side, what we see as kind of most important and things to try to get together before you go and try to talk to investors. Biggest is just knowledge. Just know that you don't have to take the first deal that they throw your way, and you don't have to do a deal in a structure that doesn't fit what you're trying to do.